Hey guys, a couple of days ago I posted a video of me performing an underhand serve and I asked the question, is the underhand serve good or bad? And I got a lot of responses. The video on Instagram got over 200,000 views. I got over 350 comments, and it appears that most of the people like the underhand serve. Now the reasons why people like the underhand serve differ. So some people like it for the entertainment factor, and some people think that this is a great tactical move. So in today's video, I want to talk about the entertainment factor of the underhand serve, why it's gotten so popular, and more importantly, I want to talk about whether the underhand serve is a good tactic. I already made a video on the underhand serve a couple of years ago where I talked more about the mental aspect of receiving an underhand serve, how that motivates a player to beat the player that does the underhand serve even more. So I'm going to link that video in the description. You can take a look. But let's first talk about the entertainment factor of the underhand serve. So personally, I am very entertained when somebody does an underhand serve because it is something that doesn't happen very often. So when it happens, it is fun to watch. And why do we see the underhand serve utilized more than ever before? It is definitely a trend. There's many players now who utilize this tactic. In my opinion, it is because the underhand serve gains a lot of attention, not only from the crowd, but also on social media. So if you go on YouTube, you'll see that Tennis TV, which is the most popular tennis-related channel worldwide, there's several videos of underhand serve compilations, but I'm not going to single out Tennis TV. Wimbledon and the US Open also have a compilation video of underhand serves. Now it is fact that nowadays players know that when they do a spectacular shot that they're going to end up on the Tennis TV feed on Instagram, which gets an incredible amount of views. So in my opinion, the reason why you see the underhand serve performed more now than ever before is not because it's some great tactic, it's because players are seeking attention. And a lot of people bring up Michael Chang, and yes, Michael Chang did famously utilize an underhand serve in the 5th set against Ivan Lendl in the 4th round at the French Open because he was cramping and he couldn't serve properly. And he only used this once in the whole match and possibly only one time in his whole career. And this is one of the most talked about points in tennis history. Back in the day, this is not something that you would see very frequently, but you see it now, and in my opinion, it's because these players are not utilizing this serve for tactical reasons. They just want to get attention from the crowd or attention on social media. And now let me talk about why the underhand serve is not a good tactic. So first of all, you have to understand that players utilize the underhand serve at very convenient score lines. So according to tennisabstract.com, which is the best statistical website in the world for tennis, the most common score in the game where the underhand serve is utilized is 40 love followed by 40-15. So in other words, you're not going to see players utilize an underhand serve in important moments of the service game. Now, one player that will occasionally do an underhand serve even in important moments is Nick Kyrgios. But you have to understand that Nick has such firepower on the serve that he can afford to gamble with a point and throw in an underhand serve here and there. Alexander Bublik, on the other hand, will only use underhand serves when the score is unimportant. For example, he used it 2 times in a row when he was down 0-5 in the tiebreak against John Isner at the tournament in Newport. People often compare the underhand serve to a drop shot, and these two shots are nothing alike because you cannot hit a drop shot when you feed a ball to yourself, because a drop shot requires the pace of the incoming ball as one of its fundamental elements. In other words, when you attempt to hit a drop shot with a high to low swing path and a slightly open racket face, you can generate backspin. You cannot do that on the underhand serve. So what ends up happening is that players will either hit the ball straight out of their wrist like this, or they will try to put a little bit of side spin on the ball. It is absolutely impossible to put backspin on an underhand serve and have the ball bounce very close to the net and then possibly bounce back towards the net, unless you did it with an extremely open racket face very high over the net. Then you could possibly get some backspin on an underhand serve, but this would be a ball that's very easily retrievable by the opponent. On top of that, it is also extremely difficult to pull off. I'm having a hard time. Of course, it's a little bit easier when you're closer to the net, but you get my point. If somebody attempted to do an underhand serve with backspin, the ball would be so high, it would be so easy to read. The other player would come up to the net and slam the ball for an easy winner. Now, I'm not saying that the underhand doesn't work. In fact, if you go to tennisabstract.com and read the article that I'm referring to, which I'll link in the description, you're gonna see that players do win a lot of points when they attempt the underhand serve. And the main factor for this is the element of surprise, and especially if we're talking about big servers where the returner is standing further behind the baseline. So players will start their normal service rhythm, and it would look like they'll hit a regular serve, and then somewhere in the beginning portion of their serve, they're surprise the opponent by hitting a serve like this. Let me try another one. I didn't do a good job there. I'm gonna start my normal serve routine, and then in my take back, I'm gonna switch to an underhand serve. So it's the element of surprise and the fact that this type of ball is very low that makes the returner get up to the ball and not be ready for it, in other words, and often the returner will slice the ball, come to the net, and the server has a pretty good look at a passing shot. Now also mind you that you rarely see players attempt a side spinny underhand serve because these are a lot more difficult to pull off. So I will say that if somebody can manage to do an underhand serve that bounces very short in the box and then curves off the court, that will be more comparable to the drop shot. But you don't really see that when players attempt underhand serves. It's usually a flat little flick, which is easily retrievable by players even if they're standing directly on the back fence. So you have to understand the context of what I just said. When players do this every now and then, it's the surprise factor that catches the returner off guard and allows the underhand server to win the points very often. But the more you do an underhand serve, the more the returner is going to be ready for it. So it's going to lose its effectiveness the more it's used. And think about this logically. If somebody served an entire match underhand, do you think this person would have a good chance to hold serve at the elite level? Absolutely not. They would get broken in the vast majority of their service games. So the only context in which the underhand serve works is the surprise factor. And it is for that reason that even the players that hit a lot of underhand serves, even those players don't use it in the most important moments of the match. That is the tell sign that even for them, despite what they might say in a press conference, it is not as good of a tactic as a regular serve. That at that level can be struck anywhere between 120 to over 140 miles an hour. And not only that, but it can be hit with many different variations in many different locations of the service box. It is a far better tactic, and it's for that reason that you don't see the legends of the game ever attempt an underhand serve. And some of you guys might be thinking, Nick, what about the recreational level? Would the underhand serve be a good option there? And I can tell you that at the recreational level, the underhand serve would be an excellent tactic. And why do I say that? Because at the elite level, players can very quickly make it from the back of the fence to the service line area because they're phenomenal athletes and they're really fast. And at the recreational level, players might have some mobility issues and they might get to that part of the court too late and do some emergency shots because of it. Also, players at the elite level are very good at handling balls from the half court. They have a lot of variety. They can do field shots, they can do power shots, they can play the ball with different types of spin. On the other hand, at the recreational level, the half court area is one of the biggest problem zones where players commit a tremendous amount of mistakes. So for that reason, if you did underhand serves at the recreational level, especially at the lower recreational level, this would win you a lot of points. However, this does not mean that you should go out there and start doing a ton of underhand serves because you can win points with the underhand serve. I equate the underhand serve to moon balls, dink shots, slicing and dicing. This type of game style wins you a ton of matches at the rec level. But what happens with players that utilize this game style is that they will eventually plateau. I would estimate it somewhere around the 4.5 NTRP level. So in other words, eventually this type of game style will stop working because the level of play is too high and players have the ability to put weak shots like that away. And the same can be said for underhand serves. Remember what I said previously, the more you do an underhand serve, the more your opponent will get used to this tactic, and your chance of winning points is going to decrease. So when you get to the higher recreational level, this will not be as good of a tactic as it is at the lower recreational level. So for that reason, I don't advise that you start doing underhand serves. You should try to develop a proper flat slice and kick serve instead, because that is the far better tactic to utilize at any level in tennis.